Hey there, Deluxe fans! Hope you're feeling exceptionally magical today. With Pixar's Lightyear finally in theaters, we've been left with a lot of information to process, and with movies as fun to watch as this one was, it's always good to go back and rewatch it to see what you missed. One thing that caught our attention this time around was Zurg. More particularly, what caused Zurg to turn evil? Although he is clearly the bad guy in the film, we wonder exactly what made him that way in the first place, and contrary to popular belief, we don't think he should be considered evil, as most people would assume. Stick around till the end to hear why we think so. One of the biggest surprises in Pixar's Lightyear was when it was revealed to us that Zurg was actually a future version of Buzz, or rather, an alternate version of Buzz who flew into the future after facing repercussions caused by his final test run. It was during the moment that Buzz got thrust forward and backward through time, which created some sort of temporal anomaly in the form of another Buzz. This Buzz returned to Star Command expecting a celebration over successfully reaching hyperspeed, but instead, he was apprehended for breaking Star Command laws and taking the ship in the first place. This form of Buzz attempted a daring escape and was successful, but ended up flying around 100 years into the future. This was where he discovered the ship that housed the armor that he wore to become Zurg, along with the robot army that he commanded. He was able to use future tech to travel back in time with his army with only one goal in mind: to stop Star Command from ever landing on Takani Prime in the first place. He was surprised, however, to find out that he could only travel back as far as the original point in time where he hit hyperspeed. This is where the paradox that was created that made it so that there was now two Buzzes in their time, one that was Zurg and one that was still a young space ranger who had now been given a shot to redeem himself. There was a brief moment where Buzz did seem to consider joining Zurg on his quest to revert the past and hopefully undo all that had happened. After all, that was one thing that Buzz had been obsessed with since they got stranded on the planet in the first place. But what stopped him from siding with his evil self was actually the memory of his long-lost friend Alicia. Though Buzz hadn't spent nearly as much time on Takani Prime as the rest of Star Command, he did get to see that they had all started lives and seemingly moved on. He got to see his best friend Hawthorne grow and start a family of her own, and even though he never got to have that, Buzz was happy to have been able to see his friend's happiness over all of those years that he was trying to save them, and he realized that if Zurg was successful in his mission, though it would save everyone and stop them from ever being stranded in the first place, it would also erase everything that they had built and all of the lives that they had started at Star Command on Takani Prime. Buzz couldn't face the possibility of erasing Izzy from existence, and honestly, he probably couldn't picture his life without his new ragtag team of ruffians that he had grown quite fond of. So, despite the fact that Buzz wanted, more than anything, to fix the mistakes he had made over the years, he knew that the stakes were just way too high. Zurg wasn't too fond of the fact that he couldn't turn his younger self over to his side, and the two then began their drawn-out battle, which, as you know, ended with Buzz defeating Zurg and leaving him to float infinitely through space. It was a really interesting internal battle that Buzz had to go through, and it wasn't the first one either. He clearly had a major struggle with who he was and what he wanted when he was being charged with crimes on Star Command and forced to flee. In fact, one of his biggest internal struggles is likely what caused that version of Buzz to become Zurg in the first place. When it comes to Lightyear, one of the biggest overlying themes in the film is obsession. It can be seen plaguing Buzz's mind from the very beginning, and it's noticed really early on in the film when he is going through the montage of his multiple test runs in hopes of hitting hyperspeed. This is one of the most powerful moments in the entire movie, because with each attempt that he makes to achieve hyperspeed, 4 years pass on Takani Prime, whereas only 4 minutes pass for Buzz. This means that he got to witness life progress on the planet really quickly, and essentially got to see everyone that he knew to move on with their lives as he continued to run the tests over and over again. This was Pixar's way of showing us just how obsessed Buzz was with saving Star Command and fixing the mistake of landing on the planet in the first place, and how far he was willing to go in order to get his people off of the dangerous planet. In his eyes, this was the only way that he could ever be redeemed and have his mission seen as being a success. The obsession literally took him away from his closest friend, Elisa Hawthorne. He watched on as she started a family and moved on with her life, which is something that I think most people would want to do at some point. Most of the people on Star Command did everything that they could to make the best of what could only be considered a bad situation, and this meant creating homes that were safe enough for them. And for some, it even meant starting a family. Buzz didn't feel that way though. His eyes were only ever on the mission, even if that meant missing out on things that could be seen as really important. In the end, he put value on his reputation and his legacy over the value of his own happiness, and because of that, he went through nearly a century without living life whatsoever. Granted, he also hardly aged, but he still missed out on what would have been likely a relatively happy life. So when the movie revealed that Zurg was simply a version of Buzz whose obsession drove him so far that he would come back in time with a robot army, it really put the obsessive part of his personality into perspective. The younger version of Buzz now had a direct look at what life spent fixated on correcting his past mistakes would turn him into. He saw an older version of himself who was just full of regret and a sense of deep sadness. And right then, Buzz realized what his obsession was turning him into. One of the hardest hitting lines that Zurg said to Buzz was, "I'm going to go back and matter again," which gave us an insight into how much his honor and his reputation meant to him, and that his obsession with creating a legacy for himself had blinded him into doing whatever he thought was necessary to achieve his goals. The younger Buzz quickly learned that obsession is only going to lead you down a dark path, whether you notice it or not. He was forced to see that it would be better to live in the world around you rather than to spend your entire life thinking about what you could or should have done differently. After all, no matter how technologically advanced you are, it's impossible to change the past. And that's the lesson that Buzz had to learn throughout the film. You can't change the past. We mentioned before how it almost looked as though Buzz was going to side with Zurg with his goal of going back in time to ensure that Star Command's ship never landed on Takani Prime in the first place. I mean, much like Zurg, Buzz never really started a life for himself on the planet. The only difference is that Buzz managed to make a new team and a new gang of friends comprised of Izzy, Mo, Darby, and Socks, and that played a huge role in his decision to go against his older self and side with his new team. Buzz realized that though he would be potentially fixing his mistake and righting his wrongs, he would also be taking everything away from the people on Takani Prime who managed to find happiness. This would have also included his best friend, Hawthorne, who wouldn't have started a family of her own, meaning he would also have been wiping Izzy out of existence. Even though it was only for a brief glimpse, Buzz got to see how happy Elisa was with her new life and how much love she felt from her family. In the end, he knew he couldn't take away that from anyone, especially not Hawthorne. He knew that he couldn't let his obsession with changing the past turn him into Zurg and take away the lives of those on Star Command. The message that Lightyear gave its viewers is actually a pretty deep one, and Pixar hit it out of the park. Throughout the film, Pixar showed us that no matter what, you can't undo your mistakes, and at the end of the day, they are just a part of life. However, with enough time, mistakes become nothing but history. Your legacy is created based on how you handle those mistakes. You can either focus on them for the rest of your life and let them ruin you, or you can learn from them and use the experience to grow as a person. On the one hand, there is always the possibility that Buzz and Elisa would have lived a happy life together had they never been stranded on Takani Prime. But the truth of the matter is that that's not what happened, so it would be impossible to know. Lightyear shows us that in this world, or any other, we only get one life, and though it might contain some hiccups, some mistakes, and some errors, it's better to live it and enjoy it than to squander it away wondering about what could have been. In reality, there is no way of knowing, so there is no point in wasting your time on it for too long. One of the best quotes that represent this message actually came from our favorite robotic feline, Socks. When Izzy was preparing for her airlock jump, Socks tells her that once you push off, that's the direction you'll go. In other words, in life, there is no turning back. The only way to go is forward, and it all starts one step at a time. I love this message, and I think it's one that everyone should take to heart, whether you're an adult or a child. Own up to your mistakes and move forward, because that's all you can do. Now, even though the younger version of Buzz learned this lesson, that doesn't mean that Zurg did. One thing that I found myself wondering as I watched Lightyear was whether or not Zurg should be considered evil. I mean, sure, his robot army was terrifying, and he was technically planning on wiping away the existence of an entire generation of people on Takani Prime. But to him, he was doing the right thing. I mean, think about it. He didn't know any of the people who were currently living on the planet, and to him, they never should have existed. Plus, if he's from the future, maybe he knows things that present Buzz is unaware of. That being said, it definitely was not a noble mission that he was on, not even a little bit, but I don't think I would go as far as calling Zurg's intentions evil. Now when he comes back for his vengeance after being defeated by Buzz and his team, I think he's going to be full-blown evil. I think that his mission is going to be less of a mission to save Star Command and more of a mission to destroy it and all of its Rangers, specifically Buzz and his team. Though that remains to be seen until they announce whether or not they plan on working on a sequel. We sure hope they do though. Like every Pixar movie to come before it, Lightyear came with a lesson that we think is perfect for people of all ages. No matter what, you can always take something away from a Pixar film. Did you catch Pixar's lesson about obsession and how focusing on your past mistakes will ultimately result in a wasted life? If so, what did you think about it and how it was portrayed? Be sure to let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear from you. As for now, that's all Disney fans. Let us know what video you'd like to see next in the comments, and like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.